Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing as always, and today my guest is not too far away from me in Mexico. Today we have Medha Parlikar coming in hot from the one and only beautiful, sunny, tropical Puerto Rico. Medha is the co-founder and CTO of CasperLabs. Medha started working with technology back in the early 80s, and for the last 2 decades, she has been delivering production software at Adobe, ever heard of them, Omniture, Avalara, MP3.com, what a throwback, and DivX. She strives to deliver high-quality production software while inspiring technical teams to solve tough problems and do their best work. She fell down the blockchain rabbit hole in 2017 and has been an avid fan of the promise of decentralization and open source software ever since, which led her to co-found CasperLabs in 2018. Super pumped to have you on. Medha, welcome to the show.
Matt, thanks so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here today.
Pumped to have you on as well. Before the show, we chatted a little bit about your life in Puerto Rico, which seems to be such a hotbed for crypto people. We'll get into that later on, but I got to start. You have worked for some crazy companies. Adobe, absolute powerhouse. I feel like most of us use some type of Adobe related product almost every day. They've turned into an absolute behemoth. And MP3.com. I got to start there. When I was doing research for the show, I was like, what a throwback. What was life like at MP3.com back in the day?
Oh man. So MP3.com, it feels a lot like 2017 in crypto. Not to bring the conversation back to crypto, but during that time, it was the .com boom, right? We at MP3.com, I still use the term we, because it was such a defining moment for me in my career, saw the future of digital music. We were really pioneers. And in that way, again, it feels the same way I do today, right? We can see the future. We saw the future back then of using a device like the iPhone with iTunes on it, or Spotify, or Shazam. We even envisioned the Shazam application where you just point your phone at the radio and then click to buy.
Come on. Back that long ago.
Back then in 1999, I absolutely remember sitting down with the CTO at that time saying, just imagine taking a device, you point it, and it listens, because the technology that MP3.com had built was a random seek of the CD. So we had a binary representation of the compact disc. So when you put the CD in your computer to get access, you had to prove ownership of the physical CD in order to get access to the service. And we would actually do a random seek of the actual disc and then share that with the servers. And only if you could actually prove that you had the physical CD in your possession did you get access to the digital media. And it's really unfortunate that the RIA shut us down, because we were ready to share all the royalties and profits of the streaming service, right? And back then, in 1999, we were able to deliver an MP3 within 3 to 5 seconds. And so the technology that we built back then, we had over 1 terabyte of streamable data. And being able to deliver that content at that rate, at that speed, at that level of service, it was absolutely phenomenal what that technology team built, right? We had YouTube back in 1999 and 2000. We called it mp4.com. And so we had a streaming service, a video streaming service that individuals could upload their own video content, right? That's what mp3.com was. You could upload your own music. You could build your own fan site. It was Web 2 when most companies were putting out Web 1.0 informational websites, right? We had a dynamic website where you could build your social community. And so it was really, really unfortunate that the company was destroyed by the RIAA in a copyright lawsuit. It's really too bad, because we were able to leapfrog the current industry, right? So, but it was fascinating. I learned a ton about technology, how to build and deliver Web 2 products at scale when I was at mp3.com. So it was definitely a real fulcrum in my career.
So you guys were like the Robin Hood Napster kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we were trying to legitimize what Napster was doing illegally, right? Napster was just doing all this sharing. And we said, look, if you make it really, really easy for people to get access to the content that they want, you can charge them for that. And then you can distribute those royalties all digitally. Like, that's what we saw. That's what happens in all the digital music platforms today. And we had actually already built out all of that infrastructure, all of the analytics, all the data tracking, all of the delivery mechanisms. And that's what we were trying. That was our strong message to say, look, right now you're putting out a CD that has maybe one song. It's really expensive for you to create that content, to distribute that content. You don't get any visibility or insights into how people are using that content. Let us streamline your distribution model and put you in direct content with your consumers. Then you'll be able to just sell the individual song. And they simply weren't ready, right? And the mistake that we made is, even though we had the large war chest, we really tried to go head to head with them instead of just waiting it out and letting the transformation happen naturally. And I think, taking from that a lot of lessons learned around how governments are approaching blockchain, how enterprises are approaching blockchain, that they are going to, first, we have a lot of education to do, right? And going head to head with them isn't necessarily going to help us win, right? So what we really need to do is collaborate with them and help them understand and really work with them and bring them along.
That's such a crazy story. You guys were so ahead of the curve. My goodness. You had Spotify locked and loaded, and you had YouTube locked and loaded. This could have, mp3.com could have been a Google or Apple type
100%.
company. Like, that's insane. Also
100%.
The domains. Who even owns mp3.com and mp4.com? Because those are those domains got to be $5 million a pop kind of thing.
Yeah, I have no idea who owns the domains today. I can tell you, in addition to that, we also had a just-in-time, a real-time CD creation service. So a user would order a CD from an artist, and then that CD would then go into manufacturing. The moment you click it, the entire process of creating the CD was all automated, including artwork, burning the CD, shipping it out. That entire just-in-time manufacturing process was also something that we had built. In addition to business music, right? So, businesses stream music. You go to a store and you hear the music that's played. That's all licensed. And so I believe this product is actually still functioning today from the original mp3.com technology, but there were little boxes that we shipped with licensed content from the artists, and we would actually pay the royalties. And so you could actually get a music streaming service for your business with the box, and the box would phone home and get new content depending on what genre you wanted, and you could create playlists and all of this. So there were multiple really interesting enterprise plays that we were actually building in conjunction with the core technology. That's
so cool. You gave me goosebumps from the MP3 story. Goosebumps on a Monday morning. You love to see that. I want to sort of talk about the synergies and parallels with the incredibly high hockey stick growing companies that you worked for, like mp3.com and Avalara and Omniture, and of course Adobe. Everyone's heard of Adobe. And crypto present day. You helped grow these companies crazy amount. You held very high positions at these companies. And of course, now you're a CTO at a blue chip blockchain company. What are some of the similarities that you saw back in the day when, Web 1.0 and 2.0 was ripping like crazy, and present day with Web 3.0 ripping like it is?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of similarities. The curve of crossing the chasm is a real thing, right? So all of these industries get very, very frothy. There's a lot of excitement. There's a hype cycle. There's a trough of disillusionment. And then there's the real build, right? And I've been through that. This is my third run through this. The first one was the dot-com boom. The second one was the cloud boom. And this is the, Web 3.0 boom, right? So I believe that persistence is really key. And the companies that focus on delivering value are the ones that are really, really going to succeed. So you have to listen to your customers. You have to be able to iterate on your product so you learn from the market, and you have to deliver value, right? These are super important. And the companies that do that, and they're very conservative with their burn and their cash, they focus on delivering value, and they focus on bringing people along and educating them, are going to win. And so here at CasperLabs, we've been really focused on those lessons learned, and we see the parallels between the adoption of cloud, the adoption of, the internet technologies, and how enterprise adopts these. And so we're going to take those lessons learned from the other two cycles, and we're just going to apply them. So I'm quite confident in our ability to succeed here. just based on, I think there's a formula in how you do this, right? It is execute extremely well, support your customers, and deliver great value.
And you just gave me a perfect segue into Casper. You and your co-founder, you started Casper back in 2018, not too long after you really discovered crypto in 2017. That's pretty quick. Normally people, jump in, they do the discovery phase, they go down the rabbit hole, they sort of pick a niche and build company. It's very rare to go straight like B2B enterprise. Why did you and your co-founder start Casper, and why did you choose to go to the enterprise route, especially back in the day in 2018, where like now, no shit, of course, there's such a need for enterprise solutions within crypto. But back in the day, I feel like perhaps, and maybe I'm way out to lunch here, but I feel like you guys sort of saw the future, because I really feel like there wasn't such a need for enterprise back in the day in 2018.
100%, right? So it's a really funny story. So, my background, I come from enterprise software as a service, enterprise SaaS, B2C with mp3.com, B2B with Adobe and Omniture and Avalara. Those are pure B2B software as a service companies at scale. And my co-founder was actually looking to invest in a Red Hat type of company in the blockchain space. So he was looking for a company because he was an investor. He and I met on the open source project that I was managing in 2017. And when he came into the space, he's like, I want to invest in the company that's servicing the enterprise because, when did the internet really cross the chasm? When did it go big, right? When did it start permeating our lives? It was really when we had large enterprises adopting or large companies building, right? They may have been startups but they become very large at very large scale to consumer. And when we saw that happen is when really the internet permeated everybody's life, right? It wasn't just about messaging and AOL online and email. It became like really the foundation and the way business is done. And when we hear people in Web3 talk about mass adoption, that's really what they're talking about, is that blockchain permeates our life, right? That's going to happen by way of enterprises. So I knew that, and my co-founder Renal knew that. So he was looking to look at the Sherpa. Where was the Sherpa, the company that was going to hold their hand, those enterprises' hands, and walk them through this journey? Because that's the way enterprise implements new technology. That's just how they do it. It's the way they've always done it. And he couldn't find one. And so when he couldn't find that company, and he was working with, an investor in this open source project, and he saw the work that I was doing, he's like, okay, she's already built a blockchain. Let's have her co-found this company that will be the Sherpa, that will build the open source blockchain, just like Red Hat was a core contributor in Linux. Let's do the same thing with a blockchain protocol, and it'll be an enterprise blockchain protocol, right? And then from my perspective, I built the blockchain that I would use. So when I'm wearing the MP3 director of engineering hat or the Avalara director of engineering hat or at any of those companies, I understood very well what it meant to be a server service, a backend protocol service, be it an Oracle, be it an Apache web server, be it whatever you're using, MySQL. What are the things that I needed from an engineering perspective in order for that protocol to really become part of an enterprise B2B stack, right? I went beyond just thinking about a solution in the enterprise. I thought about, well, if Avalara wanted to implement blockchain, or if Salesforce wanted to implement blockchain, or if Airbnb or Uber wanted to implement blockchain directly into the Uber app, what did they need? How would they deliver software at scale? How would they integrate that software, that system, into their application? And so that's what we built, because I was responsible for quality control and delivery. So anytime I walked into a company, their first question would be we can't seem to deliver high quality software out to our customers at scale. Can you please help us get there? And so that was my area of focus. And so there was a whole bunch of things I had to do within the organization to help them get to that place.
Such a cool story. I want to buzz on that topic for a bit. What is the most common bottleneck or issue or problem per se when an enterprise grade company can't deliver the world-class software that they want to at scale? Like, obviously there's no, blueprint. I'm sure it's very gray. It's not black and white, but are there themes or trends that just keep popping up when you go into a new company and consult for them or work for them or whatever the case may be? What are those ones where you're like, oh, of course, this is it, every single time after time after time?
Yeah, it boils down to a couple of themes, really. One of them is change management and control. companies need to be able to iterate rapidly. You get customer feedback, you have bugs, you have issues. You need to be able to replicate those issues, know that you fixed them, know you didn't break anything else, and release them to production with a high degree of certainty and quality, right? And quickly. That, what we call that engineering or delivery pipeline, setting that up can be very, very complicated. And when you think about a Web 2 system, when you have your production system, it's very different than your development system, right? Like when I worked at Omniture, and I'm sure it's a much bigger set of farms, they had 35,000 servers in their server farm. And this was back in 2009. 35,000,
That's
right?
bananas.
That was then. So imagine the rollout of software, right? Think about Google's servers. Google's servers, just for indexing, they basically have a copy of the full internet, right? Their data center that they built in Finland is cooled by the Nordic Sea. Like they literally are diverting the sea into their data centers to cool it. Like that's the kind of scale you're talking about in these enterprise systems, right? So I'm sure Salesforce has got tens of thousands of nodes that they're building in AWS, right? So when you start thinking about deployments at that scale, right, and operations at that scale, you need to know for certain, and these are complex applications, right? So there's all kinds of edge cases. So it's really around, system integrated testing, managing all of your environments, being able to do things like, well, if I have this bug in production, can I reproduce that bug on the developer's desktop so the developer knows for a fact he fixed it, right? Those kinds of issues, as you scale an organization, both from a technical perspective, a documentation perspective, and a release engineering perspective, they grow exponentially more complex, right? So you find yourself that in order to get developer productivity, you need to invest a lot of time and resources in building out your test and release infrastructure. And so just the Casper protocol is really purpose-built to drop into those pipelines. Like it's a really, really important piece of the puzzle. And the reason it does that is because we built it that way from the ground up. Like we built it for that reason, because I feel like for me, it would be a non-starter. It would absolutely be a non-starter, right? Like I wouldn't use any of the blockchain protocols that are out there today because they look at immutability as a hard and fast rule. And that just doesn't work in the enterprise.
You are absolutely on fire, Medha, with these stories. I need one more story and then we'll go deep dive into Casper. What is the craziest sort of shipping a massive update or piece of software story you have that involved a absolute bananas crazy bug? Like I'm talking, you and the team shipped something huge and there must have been some crazy story where you thought the whole world was going to be set on fire.
Whoa, okay. Let me think about this. A lot of these wind up being at night. What I will tell you is every single release of a big chunk of the releases when I was at Omniture would happen very, very late at night. And so when you talk about rolling out the software to 35,000 servers, we would start the rollout around 4:00 by staging the software. And then it would start propagating. So the releases would take somewhere in the order of 9 to 12 hours. So we would start at 4 p.m. and we usually wouldn't leave the office until 4 or 5 in the morning because we would be there all night waiting for the software would have to propagate out. Then we would need to validate. Each server would need to check in and validate to make sure that there weren't any dropped bits, right? That the software actually got there. Then it was staging the upgrade and rebuilding all the cubes because it was, particularly if there was any kind of logic change around Omniture did web analytics, right? So they're the largest web analytics provider for the enterprise. And so when you had to build the metrics, you had to rerun the computation. So, if you go to Google Analytics and you look at, what does my conversion funnel look like? Well, that's a cube. Right. So it takes a whole bunch of data and it pushes it through an algorithm and it processes that information and then presents an answer to you. So it has to rerun, like whenever you change that, it has to rerun all those cubes of new logic and rebuild all the reports. And so, we would have to check off and make sure that, okay, all the servers actually receive the update. And as the cubes are reprocessing, everything is working. And then we would start working with some of our lighthouse customers to verify, start looking at some of the actual systems in production to make sure that everything is working correctly. You can't replicate that, right? So when you're talking about your beta environment or your test environments, there are things that are very, very unique to production, like how you roll out at scale to 35, 50,000 machines. That is something that you can only do in production, right? There are wrapper scripts that wrap around the base software. And so you still have to manage that risk. And sometimes we have to rebuild. We run into it, we see a problem in the first few servers, we have to go back and rebuild the software, address the issue, and then so yeah, I've seen, and many, many deployments, it's all a bit of a blur. Yeah. And so it set us up really well to support the public Casper protocol, right? Because we've seen some crazy issues with the Casper protocol. And so our most recent release, it's been in testing for a really, really long time. And the reason for that is we're actually able to take a snapshot of the data from production and we're pulling it into our test environments. And we're running the software against it and we're running into specific data issues in production. So we're actually resolving bugs that we're finding in production in this latest release, which is a really fantastic thing because it de-risks the deployment in production, right, of even the Casper mainnet. So a lot of the lessons learned are very salient today in my work.
It's crazy how little the general consumer knows about what goes into these massive product ships. Like, we're sitting here and we're like, product or service X is down from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. Not that I'm going to probably use it at that time, but wonder what they're doing, where it's like, there's a full-on war going on in the background. And we're just like, I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll refresh my browser for an update. Like, it's so foreign to me. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Let's jump into Casper. One of the things that I absolutely love about Casper and doing my research for the show, you and the team are so locked in to the theme of blockchain needing to be future-proof. And again, I've listened to your stuff in the past. I'd love if you could just go on a little tangent about that specific topic and how it's so bloody paramount to succeed and for blockchain to become mass adoption, that it needs to be future-proof.
Yeah, definitely. Like if you think about any infrastructure today, right, they have gone through major upgrades and managed to stay relevant in the light of new silicon. Just a simple example, new research, new technology. And so when we talk about Casper being future-proof, we have an architecture that's very pluggable. And so there's a lot of components that go into blockchain infrastructure, into the architecture of the Casper technology itself, right? Which is what bootstraps the Casper network. Things like consensus, right? Like I don't believe that consensus is a particularly interesting topic from a consumer or enterprise perspective. The only thing consensus needs to provide is security and speed. Those are the most important things, and decentralization. And so the Casper protocol is really agnostic to which consensus model it ultimately we use, right? So it's very pluggable from its architecture perspective. And in fact, in Casper 2.0, we're going to be rolling out a new consensus protocol. And the reason we're doing that is because we continue our research. We have found a better consensus protocol. And so we're going to go ahead and release it. And in sharp contrast to Ethereum that took 7 years to do that, we're going to be doing it in less than 3 years, right after our launch. We launched in 2021, and sometime this year, we will be launching with a new consensus protocol. And that new consensus protocol has already been in testing for several months. It's already coded. And in fact, the protocol can run 2 consensus protocols. It can alternate between the current one and the new one. And the reason it can do that is we want to do side-by-side testing, right? Like given a single blockchain, is there any performance difference between running it in this consensus protocol versus this consensus protocol on the same data set? And you'll see that very purposeful testing, thinking, how you deploy software in a very low risk way permeates everything that we do, right? So rather than doing a hard cut over and saying, well, now the code only runs this consensus protocol, what if you have a problem? What are you going to do? You're going to roll back your software? Well, no. I mean, what we can do with Casper is just change a configuration and boom, it'll revert back to the other consensus protocol, which is much, much easier, right? You don't have to go through a whole new code update. So we think about problems in a very future-proof and low-risk way for the enterprise, right? We support multiple key types. We support, very much a separation of concerns between consensus and the execution of smart contracts. There's reasoning behind that de-risks how we roll out software, how releases are rolled out to enterprise. And also for enterprise, they can say, okay, great. If there's new consensus research, we know that the Casper can pull it in. If there's new virtual machine research, we know that the Casper protocol can pull it in. That's the purpose of being future-proof. That's what we mean when we say that.
You guys have a world-class team. How do you, I feel like you don't hire anyone who's not beyond world-class. Like, walk me through your guys' sort of hiring process. And because again, there's a lot of, I've worked with a lot of incredible teams and I've worked with a lot of good teams where it's like, let's just get someone in quick to fill whole X. I feel like with the software that you guys ship and with the overarching goal of making blockchain future-proof and being an enterprise solution, you must have an absolute bananas hiring process where you only pull in just the top talent of the world.
Yeah, 100%. I think our metrics are somewhere between 1% to 3% hiring on the engineering side. So for every 100 candidates we interview, we hire one. So we are extremely selective and that's for the core protocol engineers, even for the full stack developers that work on our team. We get a lot of candidates that want to apply and want to work with us. We actually go through a mini hackathon. And so if you're applying to be a full stack developer, these aren't core protocol engineers. These are folks that are building our professional services for our clients. They have to go through a mini hackathon where there may be 60, 70, 80 applicants and the top one or two are selected based on, the output that they're able to deliver. And then of course the interview process on top of that. So we are very, very selective. And the reason for that is building blockchains is hard. And we want to hire the best talent because engineers want to work with really smart people. That's their number one motivation, right? You talk to any engineer, they want to use their creativity, right? And what I love to do is just point engineers at a problem and tell them, use your creativity to go solve that problem. I myself am a very product-focused CTO, right? I haven't coded in a long time. I understand architecture. I understand first principles. I understand, all the things around software delivery and what a right architecture and infrastructure looks like. But I haven't coded in many, many years, full disclosure. But I think it's good because there's a very clear separation between myself and my team. My teams say, Medha, we want to handle that technical implementation. We want to use our creativity to deliver to you what you're looking for the customer. And it's a very nice separation of concern. And so we love to hire engineers that are entrepreneurial, right? They say, give me a problem and just let me go do my best work to fix it. So it's a very specific type of profile that we like to hire here at CasperLabs.
It's crazy. I feel like the industry standard for blockchain, like with so few developers that there are, it's got to be 25%. I feel like for every 4 that go to an interview, 1 gets hired. And again, I'm making that number up completely. But even just in my experience and working with other CTOs and sitting in on the interviews, where I candidly probably shouldn't even been sitting in. It's more I'm just going on the qual side. They're doing all the quantitative side of it. But it seems like 25% is the industry standard. So for you guys to buzz at 1 to 3, that is crazy. Medha, we got to take a quick break and give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show. That is Prime XBT, our longtime sponsor of the Crypto News podcast. Prime XBT offers a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. After making your first deposit, 50% of that first deposit will be credited to your trading account that can be used as additional collateral to open positions. The promo code is CryptoNews50. That's CryptoNews50, all one word, to take advantage and receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. And now back to the show with Medha. Medha, you guys have locked up some absolute huge mammoth partnerships. You added Google Cloud to your growing portfolio of Web3 partnerships. Walk me through this whole story. I'm so curious. I wish I was a fly on the wall. How did this all happen? I don't think maybe there couldn't have been a better partner to pull on board? How did you and the team make this happen?
Oh gosh. So we were at the World Economic Forum, right? So CasperLabs hosts the blockchain hub at the World Economic Forum, right? And as part of those conversations, we were able to connect with folks from Google through our business development team. And we were able to come away with a fantastic collaboration where customers and users of the Google Cloud platform can now run private and public networks, public nodes and private networks on the Google Cloud infrastructure. And so we're super excited about this to support, Google Cloud's dip into blockchain infrastructure. We think we're very well aligned because we focus on a lot of the same principles that Google does. If you've ever heard of the term site reliability engineering, it was something that was coined at Google. And it's very much a process that we use in engineering in preparing the Casper node for release. We go through a site reliability engineering type of process. And so I feel from a technology perspective, we're extremely aligned in what we want to deliver and the quality of our product.
And you also announced the largest enterprise blockchain deployment in history at Davos at the World Economic Forum, and that was with IPWE. Walk me through that, what happened there, and why is this so important for blockchain as a whole?
Well, definitely. So I believe, public blockchain suffers from a legitimacy problem. And it's like, well, okay, fine. So beyond crypto and, your monkeys, right? Monkey NFTs, like, why should I care about blockchain, right?
Yeah.
When you talk in the enterprise, there's a very, very strong vein of this, right? And so it's a hugely important deployment because it demonstrates a real world use case of taking an illiquid asset that is very, very valuable, attaching provenance to it, attaching trust to it, and then creating a marketplace around that. And we partnered with IBM. We're now one of the only public chains that is a partner of IBM. The Casper protocol is the public blockchain that IBM has decided to partner with. And in collaboration with IPWE and IBM, we're creating this hybrid blockchain deployment where portions of the IPWE technology uses a private blockchain and the provenance and the custody and the transfer of these NFTs, these highly valuable patents, is secured by the public protocol. And IPWE will be minting 25 million patents on the Casper protocol and providing provenance, right, and valuations for these patents. And future work is really I'm really excited. This is super exciting in terms of a real use case for NFTs. That's the first thing. The second thing that gets me really, really excited about it is in future work, you'll be able to do things like auctions of the patents using an auction contract that CasperLabs has built, where you don't have to trust the auctioneer. You can do a blind auction for your patent, and the blockchain delivers that trust. You can also do things like bundles of patents. So you can put patents in a smart contract, bundle them, and distribute the royalties according to the participants. So you could take competitors like Samsung, Toshiba, and Qualcomm that are all doing mobile patents, and they could collaborate because they don't trust each other, but they could put their patents together in a bundle or a patent pool and then sell that pool for more than each individual patent could be worth. And if you think about it, if I'm looking to acquire intellectual property, even trying to go source which patents I want, the purpose of those patents, getting a valuation for those patents, and then being able to acquire those patents in a bundle, it's really, really hard today. It's next to impossible. And a good chunk of patents that were sold before IPWE's solution were being sold by somebody that didn't even have the rights to sell them, right? So this notion of who actually owns the patent, do they have the right to sell it? What are the terms of sale? What is the patent worth? And can I prove that I own this patent? And am I in compliance with my ownership agreement? All of these things are what the IPWE platform is going to solve. And I think it's going to be a huge demonstration to the world that NFT technology really has a use case well beyond the pump cycle that we saw for these images, for just, the GIFs, right? They're a lot more than that.
Meta, why was this not mainstream news? I've heard of thousands of nonsensical use cases for NFTs, a couple dozen really good ones, which I'm really hoping will come to fruition in the next couple of years. But I candidly don't think I've ever heard of the NFT X patent use case before. Why didn't this go mainstream?
It's not sexy. I mean, to be perfectly candid with you, right? And you'll find, like, if you think about Avalara, what does Avalara do? They do sales tax calculation. That is not sexy. That doesn't mean it's not important and it's not a phenomenal business, right? In fact, going in search for the bread and butter of business is where you'll find the billion-dollar valuations. This is where you'll find the most amazing businesses out there. Is it's something that just isn't sexy, right? It is, but it is very, very essential, and it is extremely valuable. And I think that's one of the things that has been a little bit of a running theme with Casper, right? We are not in search of the hype cycle, right? What we're building isn't sexy, but it is extremely valuable. And so I would say that that's one of the reasons why you probably don't see it in the mainstream news cycle, right? Because it's not sexy, but it is very, very valuable.
What was life like at the World Economic Forum? Because again, like I've obviously never been, but you see all the crazy stories on Twitter, and the world leaders are there, and everyone on Twitter is chirping the world leaders for questionable things they've done, and then showing up at the World Economic Forum. And there's this whole buzz towards it. What's it actually like there? Like, one, Davos is one of the nicest cities in the world. Davos also hosts, I'm a huge hockey fan. They host a huge hockey tournament every year. And when I was young, I was like, oh, Davos, I keep seeing it. I'm playing with the team on NHL. I want to learn more about it. So Davos has been a friend of mine for me for, over a dozen years. But what's it like being there during World Economic Forum week? It must be crazy.
It's definitely crazy. I lost my voice at the end of it. I think it was there for a week. And by the end of it, I had like no vocal cords left whatsoever. It is... Gosh, how do I want to say this? It's you get to meet and talk to people that you would otherwise never have an opportunity to talk to. So I would say that decision makers across industries are extremely accessible, and you're able to get in front of them and have conversations that would otherwise simply not be possible at all, right? So we had the chief product officer of Meta in the blockchain hub, right, talking to Semaphore. We had the head of Tech Mahindra, the CEO of Tech Mahindra, talking at the blockchain hub. And we have had IT ministers from Karnataka and Telangana from India show up at the blockchain hub. And so I was able to meet, leaders at Cisco, just walking over to their Cisco hub and having a conversation directly with them. So it's very accessible. And I think that's probably the biggest value proposition, is that we're trying to connect with those IT leaders in these large organizations, and the hub and Davos is a really unique opportunity for you to just connect with them as people. And it's really about connecting with them as individuals. I find that people there really aren't there to necessarily pitch, but really to build connections with individuals and talk about the problems that we have in the world today.
That must be the bougiest conference, in the world, right? Like you probably have like the G20, the G8, and then like the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, definitely. Although I'd say, the white badges, we call them the white badges there, they're very selective about where they go. And so it's not like we are at the we're not at the Congress Center, right, talking there. We're all in Davos on the promenade. And so for us, it's beneficial to talk to the other heads of companies, right? So the CTOs, CIOs, and CEOs of the Fortune 1000 will be at the World Economic Forum, and they oftentimes are the ones that step out of the Congress and come to the other hubs and the other venues in the promenade.
I love that. Medha, you have been absolutely on fire. You have taught me such a huge amount. Really appreciate you coming on. One last segment before we wrap up, the Hot Take Factory. You and I jump in, we put our shit-kicking boots on, knee-high shit-kicking boots, get a little down and dirty. Give me a couple of meta hot takes that only you believe in, whereas most other people do not. Doesn't have to be blockchain related. It can be health, wealth, happiness, politics if you want to get spicy, food, AI, you name it. But give me a couple of meta hot takes before we go.
Well, so my hot take around the news today is that, they shouldn't be pointing a finger just at crypto for failing, because newsflash, right? Run on the banks is real as well. So they definitely don't get to sit on their high horse and just say that the problems only exist in the crypto space. They got plenty of their own. And so they definitely need to adapt and evolve, and we're here to help. So we definitely need to start thinking about our banking infrastructure in a new way that's in line with technology for today, right? So that's definitely one hot take. Another one that I would share is, we have as individuals a lot more sovereignty and power that we give ourselves. So I would tell people my hot take is, if you change nothing, nothing will change. And the greatest change in the world you can make is yourself, right? And so be brave and be courageous and don't be afraid to make a change for yourself in your life.
Phenomenal line. I love that. We might as well buzz on SVB for one quick second. I had 2 friends today and about 3 friends yesterday, one family member as well, who sent me various articles about SVB. And in the articles, it literally only talked about how the regulators are stepping in just to save not the thousands of companies that are exposed, but just the crypto companies, right? The Circles and the Ripples and whoever else was exposed. It's like in the mainstream articles on the Business Insiders and a lot of the, no bueno websites that it's just clickbait now. They didn't even talk about Web 2.0. It was just, the regulators are stepping in to save a crypto-friendly bank. It's just, I find it absolutely bananas. Of course, it's par for the course. But my question to you, Medha, me personally, I don't like the ethics of it, but I do believe the Fed had to step in and save the bank and all of its depositors. That would have caused an absolute shit show. Are you and I in the same yacht there, or did you sort of want to see everything blow up?
No, I think you and I are in the same yacht there because the contagion would have spread way, way, way further than just the bank, right? The contagion would have, actually, I would go as far as to say it would have caused a housing crisis, right? Because think about all the people that wouldn't get paid. Then you would have a mortgage default, right? So it would have been just massive. Now, how they're going to pull this rabbit out of their hat is not going to be pretty. They're going to have to print money. They're just going to have to print money. So it's not a good situation at all. Personally, from a generational perspective, the other day I literally apologized to my daughter, said, I'm so sorry for the mess that we're leaving you with. And so, I'm here showing up with Casper to try to do something better, to build a better future for this generation that's coming up, because I don't want to leave them holding the bag, right? So that's one of the reasons why I show up every day, is to try to find an alternative so that they can have a brighter future, right? So we just don't leave this mess for them.
Medha, absolutely incredible episode. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Before we let you go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you personally and CasperLabs online and on socials?
You can find us at CasperLabs.io. The public network is Casper.network, and you can find me on Twitter at @mparlikar. Thanks so much, Matt, for having me online.
Medha, you are very welcome. Truly an incredible episode, and would love to have you on for round 2. Folks, what an episode with Medha Parlikar. She was dropping knowledge bombs left, right, and center, told some incredible stories as well. Her and the team at Casper are moving and grooving. Do go check them out. As always, I will include everything in the show notes. If you guys like this episode, and I'm sure you did, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys. Eustace, you are the man. Appreciate everything you do. And to the listeners, love you guys. Keep growing your bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Bye for now, and we'll talk soon.